Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here of KW Bonsai. This spring I collected this eastern white cedar. It was a tree that was growing near a pathway and the top was cut off. And it's kind of regrown since then. I bare rooted the tree in spring, removed all the old clayish type soil and put nice bonsai soil around the roots and took really good care of it. I kept it in shade for the first half of the summer, and the last half of the summer it was out in the full sun and it started to grow really nicely. So the tree's strong and healthy enough to start doing some work to it. Before I start working on the tree, I want to look at the root base and see where we are. So I've got a couple of thick roots here, some nice surface roots in this area. Around the back here I've got some big surface roots that are quite high. Another couple over here. So the root base isn't too bad. It's definitely something I can work with. Going up the tree, I've got some very low branches. There's a thin one here. There's a very thick one down low here. Up higher I have a thicker one. Don't know if you can see it. There. Right up here there's another thick branch. And then there's a bunch of vertical growth coming off near the trunk that's sort of taking over as the new leader. Here's that vertical growth coming up from the trunk. The foliage is sort of a rusty olive green color. This is typical of a eastern white cedar in winter. They change this color and then in spring they green up again. Getting some dieback on a collected tree is quite normal. You're doing a lot of root pruning. Roots that were feeding this part of the tree may have been cut off, so parts of the tree will die off. When you collect a tree, you're working with what you have. When you grow a tree from scratch, you're growing what you want. This tree is collected, but there's a lot on it that I don't want. So I think with this tree, I'm going to end up removing a lot of the parts I don't like and growing a lot of the tree. I want this tree to look like a miniaturized version of an eastern white cedar that you would find in an old growth forest. So a lot of these branches down low are just too low to the ground. If you imagine a person, maybe this high, walking through the forest, all these low branches wouldn't be there on a mature tree. They would be way up high in the canopy. So I think for starters, I'm going to have to remove some of these lower branches. And it may involve this great big thick one here and the thick one up here, because they're just too thick compared to the base of the tree. Winter is a good time to remove thick branches like these. The tree is dormant. It won't bleed a lot of sap. This wound will hopefully callus over, dry up and callus over before spring comes, so I don't get a lot of sap dripping out of the wound. When I remove these branches, I have to decide if I want to cut them off and turn them into dead wood, or do I just want to cut them flush? My feeling is that I do want to cut them flush. I want the eye to follow the roots and go up the vertical part of the tree. I don't want it distracted, this nice smooth transition from the roots. I don't want these dead branches distracting the eye. I just want to flow straight up the tree. So I think I'm going to prune these off flush, all these lower branches. I'm going to prune all the smaller branches off with the bypass pruners. I'll go in with a carving tool and make these all flush, these cuts. These are beautiful branches, but they're just too low in the trunk. Smells beautiful, the cedar, when you're pruning it. Okay, I'm going to start pruning off all the branches around these thick ones because I want to remove them. They're just too thick compared to the size of the trunk. It doesn't look realistic to a miniature tree. So here I go. And let's go around to this one now and start pruning off all the branches we can off of it. And then we'll have to come in with the saw and start cutting the branches actually off. Okay, I think it's time to get out the saw. Okay, here I go. So I'm just going to come in here and... Another benefit of doing this type of work in winter is usually the roots are frozen in the pot. So you can do a lot of work to the top of the tree without disturbing the roots at all. There we go. There's one of them off. Now we got to spin around to here and cut the other one off. Okay, here goes thick branch number 2. There we go. Here's what I'm left with after pruning off those large branches. You can see it's more of an upright tree. It looks more realistic. It looks more like a tree you would see in nature. I'm going to come in now with my carving tools and carve the wounds nice and flush. I've got all my wounds carved fairly flush. You can see they're not too bad. The one up top here. The last operation I'm going to do today is just take a little bit off the height of the tree. So I'll just prune it back to here. And we have a new leader taking over here. The next steps for this tree will just be to let it grow and recover. And then we'll see what pruning we can do in the summer. That's all the work I'll be doing today on my Eastern White Cedar. So Nigel Saunders of KW Bonsai, do something green today. Volunteer to help clean up your local streams and ponds of garbage and litter that animals might ingest. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.